The most expensive films ever made are listed in this video. The amount of money invested in Hollywood franchise movies is astounding. The budgets of some movies really make you realize how small we, as viewers, are in relation to the giants in the film industry. Between the multi-million-dollar wages of the stars and the pay of thousands of crew members to post-production and marketing. The franchises and films that will appear on this list of the most expensive films ever made are undoubtedly predictable, but the precise cost of each film will undoubtedly cause you to pause. Naturally, a movie with a big budget doesn't guarantee that it will earn a decent profit or, for that matter, be a well-written and engaging plot. Disney, for instance, spends millions on each of its endeavors, but that doesn't preclude that the huge company from occasionally having box office flops. Transformers: The Last Knight is another excellent illustration of this issue. Despite having a budget of nearly $216 million, it still managed to lose over $100 million, debuting at a franchise low of $69.1 million overall. Here's a list of the most expensive films ever produced without further ado. Star Wars: The Last Jedi, $262 million. The sequel to Star Wars, The Force Awakens, received yet another substantial production and marketing budget as a result of the movie's success. However, The Last Jedi turned out to be the more continuous movie, particularly in regards to how Luke Skywalker was portrayed. Some Star Wars fans applaud Rian Johnson's ambitious storytelling, but others still take issue with many of the artistic choices. However, Star Wars: The Last Jedi brought in over $1 billion, making it profitable for Lucasfilm. Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, $263 million. Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice cost almost $260 million to produce, but it underperformed. What if I told you Aquaman and Wonder Woman did better at the box office? According to Forbes, the movie made more than 3 times its budget during its theoretical run, but it had a significant decline following an outstanding opening weekend. Some viewers claim that the film lived up to their expectations, and they enjoyed seeing the DC Trinity come together on screen. The movie starred Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, and Gal Gadot. Others, on the other hand, are less enthused about the movie and critique its darker tone and narrative. John Carter, $264 million. One of the few films that simultaneously bears the distinction of being both one of the most expensive films ever made and one of the biggest box office flops is John Carter, though its lead actor, Taylor Kitsch, would disagree. Despite having a more than $264 million budget, the sci-fi epic only made $73 million domestically. Disney had aspirations to create a John Carter series. That is understandable that they did not anticipate this movie to do so poorly at the box office. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, $275 million. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, the most expensive film in the Star Wars prequel trilogy, also had the lowest box office performance. Nevertheless, that didn't stop this movie from earning a $300 million net profit and rank among the highest grossing films of the year of its release. The movie cost was more than $275 million to produce and market. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, The Rise of Skywalker was the last movie to gross over $1 billion. However, opinions among fans of the Star Wars saga conclusion are still divided. Solo: A Star Wars Story, $275 million. The focus of Solo: A Star Wars Story, the second live-action Star Wars anthology film, is a young Han Solo who is not portrayed by Harrison Ford. The creation of Solo is notoriously problematic, with initial directors Phil Lord and Christopher Miller being fired late in the process. The movie, according to Vanity Fair, became the first Star Wars movie to fail financially. Its global box office revenue of $393.2 million was significantly less than The Last Jedi's $1.333 billion. As a result of Solo: A Star Wars Story's commercial failure, Lucasfilm has switched its attention from anthology movies to Disney Plus original shows. Justice League, $300 million. Time has repeatedly shown that having a large production budget does not guarantee international success. Warner Brothers lost money because the highly anticipated Justice League which cost over $300 million to produce, bombed at the box office. After Batman vs. Superman had a poor review, the studio tried to turn things around with the Justice League. Many supporters were upset by the abrupt course correction because they knew that Justice League did not adhere to director Zack Snyder's initial intent. The legendary Snyder Cut was in high demand as a result of years and was finally released in 2021 on HBO Max to great streaming popularity. Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, $300 million. On the other hand, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End demonstrates to the world that making a movie for $300 million can provide excellent outcomes. With almost $960 million in revenue, the third entry in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise became the most successful film in 2007. Jack Sparrow, played by Johnny Depp, continued battle for his ship while accepting his fate, and Elizabeth and Will, played by Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom, windswept romance make up the entirety of the film. What could one not love? Avengers Infinity War, $316 million. Given that Avengers Infinity War became the first superhero movie to gross over $2 billion globally, sticking to a $316 million budget clearly paid off. Despite the fact that many people think that the superhero movie genre is overused and that superhero movie worriness would soon set in, the statistics to the contrary may be a little different. One cannot deny that Avengers Infinity War has a tremendous impact on the history of cinema, regardless of whether there are fans of the MCU or not. Avengers Endgame, $350 million. Avengers Endgame, the film that will wrap up the Infinity Saga plot, was highly anticipated. It makes sense that the statistics would support that. The film had a $350 million budget, but it made $2.798 billion globally. If you thought Infinity War's accomplishments were noteworthy, Endgame outperforms them by earning the most money of any film ever from July 2019 to March 2021. Marvel Studios is still making great progress with their MCU projects, but only time will tell if they can pull off another major film production on the scale of Avengers Endgame. Avengers Age of Ultron, $386 million. The Avengers Age of Ultron is the second most costly film ever produced. The film had a $386 million budget and was shot in locations all over the world with numerous special effects. But as is customary for the MCU series, it was profitable and ended up becoming the fourth highest grossing movie of 2015. The second Avengers movie generates discussion about Tony's accountability, or lack thereof, and the team's newest member, Wanda Maximoff. After the cast threatened to leave if their contractual demands weren't honored, the price tag for Age of Ultron skyrocketed. Marvel had a lot of work to do if they wanted all of the major names to return for the Avengers sequel. Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, $422 million. Not to mention the most costly film ever produced, Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, the only entry in the series to exceed a $400 million budget. Numerous filming locations, the use of 3D cameras comparable to those in Avatar, and the involvement of 10 different companies in the complex visual effects are some of the factors that contributed to the film's high cost. Regardless of whether you love Pirates 4 or think the series is over, On Stranger Tides will still be the third highest grossing movie of 2011. Make sure to subscribe to our channel so that you can see more movie fact videos by